Hello, motherfuckers. That's the bog. Like an atmospheric, ethereal fog. Frogs are spawning. Lots of frogs. Just think of all the frogs fucking in that water. Yep. And does it make them any happier? Probably. See the header there? This is like a miniature rainforest. Underneath there, if you get I'm not going to walk there because it's a very deep ditch, might not get out. Underneath there is a miniature rainforest of sorts. And this is something I haven't seen a lot of in Ireland. I was quite surprised. I didn't think they'd actually survive in the boggy water. The high acidic content of a peat bog. Bulrushes. And there's loads of frogs fucking each other stupid down there. You see all the trails? See all the trails in the moss there? That's frogs riding each other from one end to the other. This is almost like Pornhub for amphibians. And there's no mistaking the power of Satan at the headless cross. We're out in the old graveyard today, in the bog. I don't think there's been a burial here for 100 years. There's an old ruin of an old church, and a lot of Protestants buried around here. But that's about it. You're actually safer with the dead than you'll ever be with the living. Remember that one. They can't harm you anymore. Now, yeah, I have thought something we could talk about. Two of my favourite subjects. Right, so we had sex, the frogs in the pond, and now we have death, the graveyard. So, in an occultic term, you see a lot of things about skulls and stuff like that. And we all know the famous story of how they used to get their enemy skulls, kings or knights in the old days, and when they cut the head off, they would make a drinking vessel out of the top of the skull cap. And that wasn't really magic. That was more kind of a propaganda thing. Now, according to the Romans, and we don't know if it's true or not, the ancient Celtic peoples were a head cult. You see, you have to be very careful with this Roman propaganda stuff, because that's what it is. I had one Christian lady on here the other day telling me that all sacrifice ended with Jesus, as if the Crusades and everything else didn't actually happen, and all the holy wars. Anyway, that was really just propaganda, and you have to be careful with what it might have been true, it might have not been true, about the Celts keeping the heads of their enemies and displaying them in gaps above the fireplace. There's really only the Roman accounts for this, no one really else. And remember, this is all written by Julius Caesar and Pliny when the Romans were at war with the Celtic tribes and the Germanic tribes, and they said exactly the same things about them, or similar. The idea was, we're told by mainstream historians, that they believe the soul was in the head. I don't believe they did that. I don't believe that. They might have brought back heads to show them off and things like this. In fact, it's pretty ironic that the Romans are saying this, because there's that famous column in Rome, I think the Trajan column, I think it's called, and it shows a Roman soldier with a head crossed between his teeth fighting a battle against, I think it was the Dacians. So they were doing it too. It's just a propaganda. It's just the whole thing. Who wins the war wins the propaganda war afterwards. Now, and writes the history. You know about the Masons and the skull and bones and all that. The skull and bones motif just means occultic underground doing. It means that if you want to step outside the king's rule or the rule of the church, follow the skull and bones, because it originally comes from the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar were a force outside that of the Vatican and outside the Catholic power structure of Europe, and they used the skull and bones as a way of saying that we're not a part of that scene. We're like mavericks. That's why pirates put it on the Jolly Roger and so on. It was a way of showing that you were outside that scene. You were not obedient to that. You're obedient, well, to their own god, who is probably Lucifer. And that's all that meant as well. That's what the skull and bones is all about. Although the Orange Orders and some of the Freemasonic groups, like the Scottish Rite, have an image of a dead man in a coffin. Now, I've got some very rare books on Freemasonry, and there's nothing about that part in them. I don't really know what that means, the man in the coffin. The latter is the initiation steps, that's pretty obvious, you don't have to read about that. But the man in the coffin, I never fully understood that one. But yeah, I always feel very peaceful when I come to this graveyard. There's nothing spooky about it. I come here sometimes on moonlit nights and just sit here on the grave and think about things. I've had some of my best ideas on here. And so when people say, oh, they're afraid of dying and they're afraid of the dead, you come to a graveyard like this and they're so peaceful, and then you look at the problems of the world and you ask yourself, there are very good ways of sort of making you realize that the trials and tribulations of mortal man are not are really probably overblown. Now, talking about that, I want to talk about 2 tarot cards. I don't think I've ever covered them in the tarot series. The 9 and the 10 of Swords. I don't have them on me, so I'll pop them up on the screen. One there, one there. Now, the 9 and 10 of Swords are one of these ones that these sort of like new agey websites try to play down, but what they really mean are execution, waiting for execution and death. Not literal execution. You're not going to face a firing squad, but you're waiting for your annihilation, and that's what the 9 of Swords is, and that's what that person is doing here, like this. It's the person. It's Marie Antoinette, or in her prison bed the night before she's about to be beheaded. It's that kind of thing. It's the prisoner in the cell waiting for the dawn. And then if you go to the 10 of Swords, you see that there's dawn is there, but there's also blackness over the sky, which means he or she. See, this one's interesting. That's definitely a female, but this one on the 10 of Swords, I've often been fascinated by the fact that it's kind of androgynous, so it could apply to either a male or a female. You don't see the front. That could be a woman's or a man's back, and they've been executed. And the blackness at the top means that there will be no dawn for them. Now, prior to that, there's the other card of the 8 of Swords, which shows the woman surrounded by a ring of swords. So it's the swords thing is basically very female orientated, or maybe gay orientated. I'm not putting down women or gays, by the way, in that it may be a result of things like problems that females and homosexual males, maybe through jealousy, gossip, slander, borderline behavior, coming to get back at them through their jealousy, their sentence, and their execution, which are not literal in terms of that as a court that's doing that, but it's the court of the eternal goddess who's doing it. It is the court of karma that's doing it. And this is what we should always remember, that we are the sum total of all the choices we made in this life until this point. And you know, I'll never curse a person, but if someone is appalling to me, what I always say to them is, I condemn you to the consequences of your own free choices. Think about that one. But not only that, this is a great place for contemplative meditation and quickly describing three tarot cards, but they're great spots for black metal and heavy metal music videos. That's what they are. And look at that lovely ethereal mist behind us. Lovely ethereal mist. So you get the 8 of Swords, the 9 of Swords, 10 of Swords. And what does that really give you? It brings you here. And what's the ultimate price to be paid from all this? It's reincarnation. Back to the fool again. Okay? Because there's no mistaking the power of Satan at the headless cross.